It's time for one final hurrah in the 2024 Euroformula Open Championship. Race 3 in the final meeting of the season at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. 16 laps or 30 minutes, whichever comes first. It is the final outing of the Dallara 320 chassis and the Spice engine that powers it before we introduce new machinery to the championship for next year. But for now, we have Vladislav Ryabov on reverse grid pole position, the second of our two reverse grid races of the weekend, about to get underway. But first, let's take a look back at what's happened so far this weekend. It's been a very wet weekend here in Monza, and Brad Benavides led the field from pole position in yesterday's race 1. But it was the debutant Yevhen David with a sensational pass around the outside of the 2024 champion to take the lead of the race. Fernando Barrichello fought his way up the order, challenged for the lead, but made contact with Yevhen David going into the Della Roggia chicane. Simonazzi tried to find his way past on the final lap, but it was Yevhen David on debut, the first ever Sri Lankan single-seater race winner. Race 2 got underway again with Benavides starting from pole position, this time the reverse grid, as Jakob Bergmeister tried to challenge him on the run down into the first corner. Francesco Simonazzi made his way around the outside of the Lesmos and very nearly making contact with the slow-moving car. There was contact, though, between Fifo Barrichello and Francesco Simonazzi that took the Italian out of the race, and Barrichello ended up taking up a time penalty. But it was Brad Benavides with his 9th victory of the season and nearly rounding out a pretty fantastic season for the Floridian. The championship has already been sealed in Brad Benavides' favour, but there is still honour up for grabs. Francesco Simonazzi and Fernando Barrichello, second and third in the standings. Maybe Jakob Bergmeister can close in for that 4th place spot ahead of Levente Ravesh, who's been put onto the GT3 programme for next year. The third and final race of the weekend, the final race of 2024, about to get underway. Here's how they line up. Vladislav Ryabov on reverse grid pole, ahead of the BVM racing driver Francesco Simonazzi, with Fifo Barrichello third and Jose Garfias starting in 4th. He's had 2 podium finishes so far this weekend, as has Yevhen David, closing out his first weekend in the Euroformula Open Championship alongside race 2 winner Brad Benavides. Jakob Bergmeister in 7th position on his return to the championship. Roman Rubicek at the back of the field in the Gold Cup car. Chris Stevens and George Morgan in the commentary box for one final time, George, in 2024.
The last dance in the Dallara 320 chassis. Chris Stevens, good morning, everybody. Hope you're all doing well wherever you're tuning in across the globe. We have got a fantastic contest lying in wait here around the Temple of Speed. Credit to Brad Benavides, of course, champion, as we've already said, coming into this weekend, and this will be an opportunity for him to go out in style, you know, potentially round off with 10 race wins at the end of this campaign. He's already managed to accrue 9 after winning yesterday's race, but this is going to be a different test. Obviously, he needs to fight his way through the field, which I'm sure will mean a lot. It would also be a 20th podium if he can put this together as well, but also with Francesco Simonazzi sat on the front row, he'll have a great chance of taking a home race win at the Temple of Speed. That is Monza this weekend. So it's going to be a fascinating one, I'm sure. Barrichello, obviously coming into this, he looked really strong in the opening race, came back, fought back in the wet conditions he seems to thrive in. Let's see if he can do it again this time, Chris.
Yes, Brad Benavides, you mentioned his 19th podium. That is a new record set in the Euroformula Open Championship, beating Olli Goethe's 2022 record. So it has been a record-breaking season now for Brad Benavides, on top of a dominant one at that as well. He's going into his final race in the Euroformula Open Championship as potentially a couple of drivers, although we do think a number of these drivers will be back for a full season campaign in 2025 with the new Dallara 324 chassis with the Tom's Prepared Toyota-based engine for next year. It'll be a very different look when we go racing in Portimao in April, but for now we still have 16 laps to round out the season. The wet tyres from Pirelli are still on the cars as we have damp conditions here in Monza. All 5 lights are on, and for the final time in 2024 we are racing, and it's a sluggish start from the front row. Simonazzi already tried to duck out from the outside. Fernando Barrichello was getting alongside there as well for third position, but it is Ryabov just with the lead, but not by much at all as Simonazzi tries to go around the outside. Jose Garfias, it looked like it was going into the back of the pole sitter, and plenty of cars having to skate over the road, and Garfias can't even get round the corner, and that blocks Jakob Bergmeister. So the car that comes out in the lead out of the Rettifilio is race 1 winner, Yevon David.
Welcome back to the front, Yevon David. Of course, race winner in his maiden start in yesterday's race 1 here at Monza, and he looks set to go 2 in 3 if he can do that, and 3 for 3 for podiums if he can hold it together. We've got movements then further back, a move heading into the Roger chicane for Vladislav Ryabov, jumping ahead of Brad Benavides straight away on the run out of Curva Grande, but they head through Lesmo 1 and Barrichello in second. Once more, we now see a tyre. Brad Benavides once again displaced, this time by Francesco Simonazzi, and there is the 99 of Jose Garfias, still striking in the gravel, Chris, but look at Simonazzi, he is on a charge. He's going to have a look round the inside. Safety car though out.
Yeah, so the charge has been very quickly halted by the arrival of the safety car out on track 4. Jose Garfias stricken car in the gravel trap, so he could not turn around the corner. Clearly got suspension damage after hitting the back of Vladislav Ryabov going into the Rettifilio for the first time of asking. So he then went across the escape. I think Simonazzi did as well, because he was alongside Ryabov going into the first corner. Yevon David must have thought that Christmas had come early as he arrived out of the lead of the race. Here we're going to see it again. So there's Garfias just popping out, realises he's going to run out of road. He's tucked right up behind the rear wing of Ryabov's car, and then, just doesn't quite get it stopped in time, and Simonazzi has to take to the escape, as does FIFO Barrichello there as well. And there you see poor Jakob Bergmeister in the wrong place at the wrong time, because Garfias can't get it round the corner, and so poor Bergmeister ends up in last position. And Yevon David, with the clean run, was very lucky to clear Garfias when he did, actually.
Yeah, Roman Rubicek also making his way through past as well. There's the 26, you just see in there the 99 of Jose Garfias now striking in that gravel trap. That is why we have the safety car now out on circuit, folks. But Yevon David back in front, but he'll now settle behind the safety car with raised yellows throughout this circuit as we now look to get Garfias' car cleared away, which will leave 7 runners to take us through to the end. And of course now, after finishing the opening lap, we move on to lap 2. 15 to go here in this race. Fastest lap, no surprise, going Yevon David's way. Barrichello, though, storming back up to second, a chance to bounce back. And I spoke to him yesterday in the paddock. Obviously, he was disappointed that yesterday did not go to plan. And he'll have a great chance to right the wrong. And he said today, or should I say back yesterday, he said tomorrow is a new day, a fresh start, a chance at another victory. If we remember the truly outstanding performance he pulled out back at Red Bull Ring, he'll be looking for the same again, and he's right on the tail now of Yevon David, and we'll get a tow as well when we get a restart going.
Well, what we've ended up here is a similar situation to what we had in race 1 with FIFO chasing Yevon David. And we know how that ended up, but FIFO had really great speed in the first race. He was romping up through the order and catching Yevon David hand over fist in the closing stages of race 1 before the contact was made. So there is still an opportunity for both of these drivers to potentially take their second victory in the Euroformula Open Championship. And we are going to find out very soon, because the safety car will be in this lap.
Yeah, well done to the marshals, very quickly clearing the stricken car off in the gravel trap. Hence why we'll have the safety car back back in the pits. Then we'll get back underway for race 3, and we'll decide as to who's going to take the final race win of the season. The final soiree, as we said, of the Dallara 320 chassis. The brand new 324 will be in use as of next season. A grand commitment of cars that are going to be on offer, with 22 suspected for next season, which will, I'm sure, be outstanding to see, in hope that we will get, of course, new drivers, new teams coming into the foray. It's going to be a very exciting off-season when we see the announcements roll out prior to 2025. Sit tight, everybody. There you can see the cars now starting to queue up. In behind there is Jakob Bergmeister in car 26, right behind Roman Rubicek. He was caught up with Garfias coming out of turns 1 and turns 2, so he's got a little bit of a fight on his hands, but great to see him back, Chris, after a little bit of a break.
Plenty of weaving down this back straight to get those Pirelli wet tyres back into the operating window after running at safety car speeds. FIFO not bothering with any of that, nor is Vladislav Ryabov, but Yevhen David will leave it late, I'm sure, because he's going to be punching a hole in the air all the way down the home straight at Monza. So the Sri Lankan racer who won on debut yesterday, the first ever Sri Lankan single-seater race winner, we believe. Now going for his second win, as is FIFO Barrichello behind them. They made contact in race 1 yesterday, and still, even at the sight of the green flags, Yevhen David has not gone. Now he puts his foot to the floor, and Barrichello will be hoovering up that slipstream, a face full of spray as the cars build back up to racing speeds side by side now. Barrichello on the outside line almost has drawn clear of Yevhen David's car, and by the time they get to the braking zone, he does, and it's Vladislav Ryabov going right round the outside, but did not get it stopped. Goes skating off at the Rettifilio, and so he'll have to come out behind Yevhen David, I'd have thought. Clips the barrier, the polystyrene barrier there on his way through the little shortcut, and yes, does slot back into third position. Simonazzi now with the momentum, trying to capitalize on that mistake from Ryabov, and he stretches clear into third place with a very simple maneuver indeed. Yevhen David tries to get the lead back again. Ryabov tries to get third place back, and again cannot get it stopped. Simonazzi up in the air for the second race in a row. Simonazzi's been clattered into.
Yeah, suspension damage also on Ryabov's front right. Obviously, that's the tyre that made contact with the back of Simonazzi's car. And once again, Simonazzi caught in a moment here around this Monza circuit. So now that has forfeited any chance here at this stage of a race win at his home race. But now back in the field, you can just see there, a battle over third. There is Benavides. Yellow flag still being raised at turn 4. We'll keep you posted if the safety car does come out. A 3-second time penalty goes the way of Jose Garfias, as now battle for the lead erupts. Down the outside comes Yevhen David, licks the curb coming into the Ascari chicane, but leads the way once more. Barrichello persevering down the inside now once more. Again is the 26 of Jakob Bergmeister. Remember, he started at the restart at the tail of the field. Well, he's fought his way up past Rubicek. He's fought his way past Benavides. Barrichello on the hunt as well, as they now sprint in towards the Alboreto corner.
Yeah, I'm not sure that time penalty for Jose Garfias is going to affect him too badly, because he was parked up at the side of the road, as now is Vladislav Ryabov. Big dent in the front right corner there, but it's game on once again between Yevhen David and Fernando Barrichello. So it's the same position they were in a lap ago, but they have swapped over a couple of times since then. 13 to go when they came across the stripe, and again FIFO Barrichello with the run, but this time he cannot draw alongside. Yevhen David holding the inside line for the Rettifilio. Maybe Barrichello will get the run out of this corner and down the straight around the Curva Grande towards the Della Roggia chicane. He doesn't quite look close enough, but he's still in hot pursuit of the Sri Lankan.
Yeah, still chasing after him, but this is something that Fernando Barrichello is very good at. He closed up immensely on Yevhen David in our race 1 yesterday, and we'll need to do the same again. We'll see how tenacious he truly is, the Brazilian. Let's take a look at the replay once more. So you've got Simonazzi on the outside of the BVM car, rear left making contact with front right of the Vladislav Ryabov Dallara 320, and as you can see, clear damage on that front right tyre. Giuseppe Mazzotti slightly more animated than yesterday's incident, and Francesco Simonazzi's father also not happy with that at all.
Simonazzi Senior was not very happy with that at all. There is front wing damage on that BVM racing car, but Simonazzi hasn't brought that car into pit lane. He's persevering on in 6th position as it stands. So not the end to the Euroformula Open campaign that Francesco Simonazzi was hoping for, and it is a 3-second time penalty for Vladislav Ryabov. Again, he's out of the race, so it's not going to make any difference there, but the guilty parties being found, and they are both out of the race, and Simonazzi, an injured car, limping around at the tail end of the field. We still have 5 healthy cars out there, and 4 of them in relatively close proximity. But I wonder if Brad Benavides has got some sort of problem on that car. I don't think he was caught up in that first corner melee, but doesn't seem to have the pace to match the chase. In fact, last time around was 3 seconds slower than the rest of the field. So I wonder what's going on with Brad Benavides as Yevhen David does fastest lap of the race. Yeah,
Yevhen David once again showing that electric pace. Of course, being touted as a budding star by the Motor Park team, and he's showing all of that right now. Still clear of Fernando Barrichello at this stage. The gap currently sits at 1.1. Yevon David's fastest lap time over the course of the last one. He's the only driver in the 153s as it stands, and it's a 154.1 in the last lap for Fernando Barrichello. Jakob Bergmeister, though, also actually lapping in the 153s, just missed that 153.808. And there is the BVM belonging to Francesco Simonazzi. They are now looking to change that front wing, replace it with a new one, and hopefully they'll send him straight back out. You can see there Giuseppe Mazzotti, the team boss at BVM, hard at work along with his crew as they try and get his car back underway. Yevon David, though, sprinting down the Seraglio straight, once again going very much clear, but it's a purple first sector this time for Brad Benavides. That's interesting. 36.579 in sector 1, so he's starting to kick into gear now. It's a faster second sector here for Yevon David, who is still trying to clear Fernando Barrichello. That gap that was 1.1 is now 1.4.
So I wonder if that was just a bad lap from Benavides as Simonazzi rejoins the racetrack. He will be praying for a safety car now in these remaining 11 or so laps to try and get back onto the tail end of the field, because he's very nearly a lap down now. But here comes Yevon David out of the final corner and stretching his legs now out at the front of the field. It seems like a different story to race 1 yesterday, where Barrichello was the aggressor in that battle, but David again doing the fastest lap of the race, now down to a 53.0 and pulled another 0.6 over FIFO Barrichello. Jakob Bergmeister is the one closing in, as he was nearly half a second quicker than the second place man.
Yeah, incredible. Still the last lap from Benavides, 155.221. So still with plenty of work to do here for the Floridian. Despite going purple in that first sector, it did not correspond in the latter two, so really needs to dig deep. It's still David, though, who's setting the pace. 153.066, answering to the earlier 153 that he had set. He hasn't gone a personal best in the first sector this time. That time it went to Fernando Barrichello, who did a 36.7. Incidentally, nearly 2 to 3 tenths faster than David coming out of sector 1. Benavides making his way through the Rogier. He didn't go personal best in that first sector, but he is still faster than Bergmeister and Barrichello, nonetheless, in that first sector anyway.
But he's losing a second in sector 2 and sector 3 on these previous couple of laps. So I don't know, yeah, something just doesn't seem quite right about that number 71 machine at the moment. So I would assume that Benavides is just limping that car home. But Yevon David still stretching his legs out the front, just on the fastest middle sector of the race as well. And in the middle sector, Barrichello is trying to respond to Bergmeister. They're pretty evenly matched on this lap so far, so the gap's still hovering at around 2.3. Barrichello looking to end his maiden campaign in the Euroformula Open Championship on a high. He's had a few podium finishes as the rookie driver, having joined us from the Brazilian and Spanish Formula 4 championships in recent years. We'll see if he joins us on the grid in 2025. Of course, Jakob Bergmeister rounding out his second campaign in the Euroformula Open Championship, and only his second year of car racing. Remember, he did the F4 UAE in the winter of last year and then came straight into the Euroformula Open Championship, and certainly had some impressive results as well. Fourth generation driver is Bergmeister. Of course, Barrichello, second generation driver as well.
Heading down into Rogier once again. Still Yevon David in full control. Gap now 1.4. Barrichello starting to work it back, his last lap being fastest for the Brazilian. The two rookies in control of this race here so far. Yevon David already making a statement in his very first weekend, which looks set to become a full lockout of podiums. Of course, 2 wins against 3 races, but couple that with the phenomenal result to kickstart the weekend. Certainly a good showing. Finished 3rd yesterday as well in race 2, as he now flies down in towards the Rogier once again. This time just looking to pick his spot. Daring, but still cautious over those very slick curbs that are a lot flatter than what they used to be. They can certainly take them. Not a lot of ground clearance in these single-seater cars, but still the drivers feeling their way around. Fernando Barrichello once again faster than Yevon David in the first sector, but not quite in the second. Yevon David went purple in the second sector. as he now hurtles around Curva Alvareto. Let's see if he can steal the fastest lap time as well away from Barrichello. If he manages to dish out a fantastic third sector, he could very easily do that as he now sprints down the straight. He's going to be catching up with a couple of back markers as well, you'd fathom. I think there's still, well, Garfias is out, Ryabov's out, Simonazzi, of course, they changed his front wing. Rubacek also out on circuit, coming across the line. It wasn't a fastest lap on that occasion for David, but Barrichello put one in, 152, our first 152 of the session. That's a 152.750, which is astonishing. It's back into a second gap now.
Yeah, so just took 0.6 of a second out of our race leader. This is now starting to feel a lot like it did in race 1. The second half of the race, Barrichello started closing in, and we're just about to cross the half race distance threshold, but he's right with the race leader now, so that has, it's come down another 0.3 of a second just in the first sector alone. So Yevon David has got to get his elbows out once again, as he did in race number 1, because Barrichello is arriving on the scene. And remember, he took his only race win in the Euroformula Open Championship back at Red Bull Ring in similar conditions to this. I think it was slightly wetter than this, but it was a real tit-for-tat battle with Michael Shin it was back then, as we can take a closer look at our race leader, Yevon David, who's been an absolute sensation in his first year, just correcting that slight bit of oversteer on the exit, but Barrichello now in hot pursuit. And of course, I think the big difference between the win in Red Bull Ring and if he were to win here today is that his father's with him, because he's competing in the International GT Open, the GT Open 500 later on today. In fact, that's immediately after this race. So yeah, it would be great for a great day for the Barrichello family, especially after Barrichello Senior was so impressive in the qualifying session yesterday. And so if FIFA were to take up a win today, they might have another emotional moment in pit lane together.
Yeah, there's quite the legacy in the Barrichello family, with obviously Dudu Barrichello and FIFO as well. I've had the fortune of commentating on both young drivers, and of course now Rubens himself too. And we all saw Rubens' reaction after going fastest in Q2 yesterday, sprinting down the pit lane, giving a warm embrace to his son Fernando. When I spoke to Rubens after the race too, he said yes, he's here as a racing driver, but he's also a father, and that for him is what takes priority. And no surprises, every father wants to see their son do well. And Fernando, despite his challenges, he's had the support not only from his team, but also from his father alike, who's been right with him from the very start, and is hoping that Fernando can bring this one home in what would be a phenomenal second victory of the season, should he get past Yevon David.
Jakob Bergmeister just straight-lined the De La Rocha chicane, but nothing really doing back there. Last lap around, Yevon David responded to the pace of FIFO Barrichello, got himself into the 52s, but the Brazilian was still a 1/10 of a second quicker. So the gap when they went across the line was around 9/10 of a second. Barrichello's brought it back down again to about 3/4 of a second. He's good in that first sector, is Barrichello. Let's see what it is, and it's a fastest middle sector for Barrichello, but they were very evenly matched to the 1/10 of a second. This is Barrichello. I love the slow-mo shots we get to enjoy through the courses of these races, and look at that full 180-degree lock going around the second element of the Rettifilio. A little bit of bouncing for Yevon David. Just porpoising a little bit just down the back straight. Of course, the immense speeds they get here. But this is a track where you're slightly more likely to have it than anywhere else, and feel like they are still hunting for the wet parts of the racetrack to cool those Pirelli wet tyres down, because although it's not raining, and it hasn't been raining all morning really, the water's just not really shifting out there, but I do wonder how far away we are from sort of slick tyre running. They won't change in the middle of this race, but of course that could be a concern for the races happening after this, but not a concern for these drivers, or it will be if the Pirelli start to overheat, if it gets too dry out there and they run out of water to hunt for, because you can see it looking for every little bit of it now on the extreme ends of the racetrack. And again, the gap has been brought down once again to half a second. Fastest lap was set by Jakob Bergmeister, but that's because he straight-lined the chicane, so you can ignore that one, because he was in the 51s last time around. That's not going to stand.
No.
It's a second quicker than everyone else out there.
Astonishing. I mean, at the end of the day, obviously, it's still Barrichello going to work. He did briefly take the fastest lap anyway until Bergmeister's time. We're just watching a slow-mo of Brad Benavides.
George, this is why he's struggling. He's on slick tyres.
Yeah, slick tyres, so they've gone a different route with Benavides altogether. So it'll be interesting to see Benavides' sector times later into the race to see how much it dries up between now and the end. But unfortunately, it's cost him so much time in this initial stint. You can see 16.3 off Yevon David right at the top, as now once again we see Barrichello getting closer, though Yevon David did put in a personal best in the second sector. It was only by a mere fragment between David and Barrichello to a point, as they now fly around Alboreto. Still Barrichello very much in the wheel tracks. Let's see where the time sits coming across the start-finish line. Here comes the Sri Lankan, 37.5, 37.6 for Barrichello, 152.278 in that last lap was a personal best for Yevon David, so doing enough just to try and fend off Barrichello, but Barrichello's got that slipstream, Chris, and that's crucial around Monza.
It certainly is, can make all the difference, and you almost wonder if you want to be leading onto the last lap. Remember last year, it came right down to the wire in a few of those races. We had cars side by side across the line. We've seen it in the other races that we've had so far this weekend. The Clio Cup race came down to about 17 thousandths of a second because they were positioning their cars and using the strategy in exactly the right place at exactly the right time to try and pounce, and that's what FIFA's got to try and work out here as he does another purple sector in the beginning of the lap. He's got to choose his moment here wisely, because if he pounces too early, that gives an opportunity for Yevon David to try and come back through. And the power of the slipstream as well is that Barrichello is about 6 kilometers an hour faster than Yevon David in the speed trap on the front straight. Yeah,
and he's just gone purple in the first sector too with a 36.421. So again, finding tenths on Yevon David, which is absolutely key. He came into sector 2 just over 0.5 of a second away, just under 5.5 as they now fly out to Ascari. Let's see how much he can generate heading down the straight. Yevon David knows this as well. He's consistently trying to break that toe, also looking for that optimal line heading down into Alboreto once more. But Barrichello still urging closer as he now races around the final corner on this lap. The battle very soon, I'm sure, will get underway. It's currently in full flow here with Yevon David favouring that inside line to try and generate the pace to get across the start-finish line. But this is where Barrichello can be quick, heading down the long straight. Again, 500ths found by Barrichello as they cross the line, as they sprint down towards the Rettifilio. Will he look to pull the plug on this Yevon David lead heading in towards turn 1, or will he renege for now? He'll have plenty of opportunity because we've got 5 laps to go. The Brazilian is on the hunt.
It certainly is, and again, looking for a little bit of a switchback. This is the section of the racetrack where Barrichello's been hauling in Yevon David, and it was 2 purple sectors for him last time around, but yeah, 51.8 last time around, and that's a legit 51 as well, not Bergmeister's 51 where he cut across the chicane. So that's essentially the fastest lap of the race we've seen so far. Pulled another 0.2 of a second. Oh, big slide for Yevon David, big slide for Barrichello as well on the exit of the Della Roggia. These two are knocking 7 bells out of each other in terms of the lap times, and there's so little to choose between these two at the moment. Here's a look at Jakob Bergmeister in 3rd position, that familiar shiny blue helmet that reflects his, I think it's his grandfather's helmet, not his great-grandfather's helmet. His great-grandfather was the motorcycle racer, if memory serves me correctly.
Well, this could yet be a first podium for Jakob Bergmeister since his victory back at Paul Ricard in race 1. So I'm sure that'll be a nice momentous one for him. Obviously, he's well and truly clear at this stage of Brad Benavides, who's taken a chance on those slick tyres.
It's not working, is it, George?
Not quite. I would say that. It's since launched out 3 seconds upon the 16 that we saw, and it's gone out again. It's 20.4 now.
It's 25 to
25 to the leader.
David.
Yeah, 20.4 away from Bergmeister. There's Roman Rubicek flying through the first Lesmo, the Czech driver coming in Gold Cup class. Just making his way around the Monza circuit here at the Temple of Speed in the black livery that he has donned for the rest of this campaign, but this final chapter is certainly going to make its mark with these two at the very front. Barrichello really aiming to try and close up. He wasn't necessarily as quick, though, in that last lap. It went Yevon David's way with this time his first 151 of the session. That is a personal best for him, 151.999. Don't call the ambulance. 37.421 was a purple third sector in that last lap as well, so credit to him for that. David still persevering and goes green again in the first sector, so trying to respond to Fernando Barrichello, and has launched out that delta to 1.2 seconds.
Yeah, it was 0.8 of a second. Yevon David pulled over Barrichello last time around, so David's responding. Barrichello, maybe it was a slightly sluggish lap because it was back into the high 52s when he was lapping in the high 51s a moment ago, so Barrichello trying to gather that all up for these remaining 3.5 laps. But I fear opportunities may be starting to run thin for the Brazilian to try and close in on Yevon David. So Jakob Bergmeister now 5.1 seconds back from the lead battle, but still on course for another podium finish. I think it is his 7th. Yes, his 7th of the campaign. The leaders make their way through Curva Alboreto. There'll be 3 to go when they get across the stripe. Bergmeister continuing on his way, 4th generation racer, as we mentioned. So his great-grandfather, the motorcycle racer, his grandfather, a touring car driver, his father, a GT Masters champion, his uncle, a Porsche Works driver as well, Le Mans class winner as well. And now Jakob looking to have his own legacy as a Bergmeister. Still hunting for the wet patches out there, looking for any standing water they can possibly find. But the racing line, the drier patches, they're starting to widen out there because there's practically no spray coming off of the cars now in one of the fastest parts of the racetrack. So I'm starting to wonder if those Pirelli wet tyres are starting to cry a little bit. We will now go down to time, because we did have a little bit of a brief safety car period and we're running at a slightly reduced speed due to the weather conditions. We might still get the full racing distance in of 16 laps just about. Oh, that's poor Vladislav Ryabov. Penny for his thoughts after his collision with Francesco Simonazzi that took him out of the race. But just over 2 minutes to go then, back through the Ascari chicane. And I will say that Barrichello, maybe he's got something left in the tank because he started closing back in again. He was 0.2 quicker last time around, purple in the first sector again, and just took another 10th out of him in the middle sector as well, so the gap back down to 0.8 of a second. 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, Barrichello still proceeding with this hunt after a second race win this campaign. Same can be said for Yevon David after taking his first at the very start of the weekend. The question is, who can reach 2 first as they now sprint down towards the line. Barrichello ushering in a fantastic 151.449 and went purple in that sector 3. And once again in the wheel tracks, once more of Yevon David as they head down into the Rettifilo, going daring, slightly more daring on the brakes here from Barrichello as they now make their way around. This is going to be the final lap of the race.
Well, maybe we don't know, George. They came across the line with about 151 remaining, and the laps are currently about 151. So, not quite sure if that will be the final lap. We'll wait to see if the checkered flag does meet the drivers at the end of this one, but Barrichello was as close as he has been all race long, hovering over the back of Yevon David's car. This is where they made contact yesterday. They have survived for now, and so Yevon David, he couldn't really slug because he had Barrichello all over his tail, but he might have just extended this race by one more lap. It's going to be so tight when they get across the line, so we'll wait to see if the checkered flag will come out. But for now, it is Yevon David with a couple of car lengths over Fifo Barrichello with 45 seconds left on the clock, heading back down towards Ascari. Surely opportunities are starting to wear thin now for Fifo Barrichello. If it doesn't happen in Ascari, it'll have to happen at the Curva Alboreto. What's the run like for Barrichello? Yes, confirmation, this is going to be the final lap. And Barrichello hasn't quite got the run he needs through Ascari. There's a few car lengths between them, but there's a big slipstreaming opportunity, and Yevon David is trying to break that toe as much as he possibly can, heading down towards the final corner. Maybe it's going to be a drag towards the finish line, but for now it should be Yevon David. Barrichello was very late on the brakes, though, but unless he gets the mother of all exits out of the Alboreto, it will be for the second time this weekend Yevon David, who takes victory in the Euroformula Open Championship season finale at Monza. He ends his debut weekend on an absolute high, ahead of Fernando Barrichello. Jakob Bergmeister collects his 7th podium finish of the season, rounding out his second year in the championship on a high. The slick-shod Brad Benavides should come across the line in 4th position. That was a brave call for the Floridian. Kind of nothing to lose, really, with the championship sealed off. But this man, Yevon David, what a performance in his debut weekend. 2 race wins and an extra podium finish.
He got going right at the very start. Generally, we've seen from some drivers where it comes to, obviously, the Dallara 320 machinery, sometimes it takes a race or two to get going. Yevon David got going right at the very beginning and managed to launch out with 2 race wins, that being his second. 3 podiums in total here at the Temple of Speed for Yevon David. What a debutant, what a start to his Euroformula journey. Big question marks as to whether we'll see him next season, but I hope we do. What a class performance. And Fernando Barrichello, once again, also a class showing, taking the fastest lap. Once more, on top of that, yet another podium going his way. That's his 5th. And Jakob Bergmeister with his, with his first podium since Paul Ricard, where he took victory in race 1. What an occasion for the young German.
I think all of Sri Lanka needs to stand up and applaud that man, Yevon David. And if they've got the money to get him through, hurl it at him, because he's an incredible talent. Yevon David, for the second time this weekend, rounds out his debut weekend in the Euroformula Open Championship with a 2nd victory of the season. Fernando Barrichello rounds out his maiden campaign in the championship with a 2nd place finish. Jakob Bergmeister picking up his 7th podium of the season in 3rd. Brad Benavides took a gamble on those slick tyres. It didn't pay off for the Floridian. Francesco Simonazzi having to make a front wing change after contact with Vladislav Ryabov. He and Jose Garfias out of the race. The final championship standings in the 2024 Euroformula Open Championship. 86 points is Brad Benavides' lead over Francesco Simonazzi. Fernando Barrichello 3rd in the standings. And already back into part ferme is Yevon David, who I think should start to get used to this feeling, because he is quite the talent. They've taught him how to take the wheel off this time. Remember, he struggled with that in race 1. He did it no problems that time around. And it is P1 once again for Yevon David. And yeah, I really hope we see him back next year. What a talent.
No doubt. Obviously, I hope we do. Obviously, conversing now with Kai, engineer down at Motor Park. Fernando Barrichello finishing his season in 3rd position. Just behind Francesco Simonazzi, but yet another podium, like we said, to add also to the win that he managed to accrue back at Red Bull Ring. What a journey it's been for him, rediscovering his form in single-seaters since taking part in Brazilian F4, now moving into the Dallara 320 F3 machinery. Yevon David will weigh in, and what a moment, what a weekend, and no doubt will give him plenty of confidence should we see him next season. I mean, if this is but a fragment or a small snippet of what we could see from this young driver, we have got lots more to find. But now the top 3, Chris.
Jakob Bergmeister in 3rd position, rounding out his 2nd campaign with a podium finish for the 7th time this year. It is a 5th podium finish of the season for the rookie Fernando Barrichello. So close to victory once again, half a second away in the end, but still a great end to his maiden campaign in Euroformula. But take a bow, Yevon David, for the 2nd time in his debut weekend. He is on top, and once again having a chat in pit lane with Alfredo.
Yevon David made it once and you made it twice.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super happy. What can I say? Starting from P5 to win again on my debut weekend, I couldn't be happier.
It was, well, not easier. It's never easier, but almost, no?
Absolutely. I mean, it was me and FIFO again fighting for the win, but this time I didn't make the mistake and held my ground and put a right foot always to the end and did well. So super happy with myself.
I'm sure you enjoyed the weekend.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, 2 wins and a podium. I couldn't be happier.
Come back next year, then.
Oh, I would love to. Thank you very much.
All the best.
That's encouraging to hear. Let's see how he took his second win of the weekend. Remember, Vladislav Ryabov started on pole position. There was plenty of bucking and weaving and swapping and changing going into the first corner, but it all came undone as Jose Garfias clattered into the back of the pole sitter, blocked Jakob Bergmeister as he couldn't turn around the corner as well, and the Mexicans' race ended very, very quickly indeed. We had a brief safety car period. After that, when we got going again, Vladislav Ryabov, or before we had safety car, Vladislav Ryabov was making their way through. Brad Benavides struggling on those cold slick tyres as everybody came through. After the safety car period, we had Fernando Barrichello challenging for the lead down the outside. He got past Jevan David very briefly. Then we had this moment, Vladislav Ryabov getting into the side of Francesco Simonazzi and rather ruining the Italian's race. After Jevan David retook the lead, he would hang on to it for his second victory in his debut weekend and rounding out a truly remarkable couple of days for the Sri Lankan. Not only now the first Sri Lankan single-seater race winner, but now he has done it twice as well. He said he hopes he's back. We certainly hope so as well, because what a talent that Motorpark has discovered here from the Spanish F4 Championship. Of course, remember as well that Jevan David used to driving on the Hankook tyres in the Spanish F4 Championship, having to get used to those Pirellis as well, on top of an entirely new car as well. It's a huge step up from the F4 to this Dallara 320 chassis, quicker than other regional Formula 3 machinery out there, and of course a great stepping stone into the FIA Formula 3 Championship, as many other drivers in recent years have found out. And the legacy of getting drivers up the racing ladder and even into Formula 1, or setting up great careers in professional sports car and endurance racing as well, should continue next year with the introduction of the Dallara 324 as well. But the winner's book are already signed by Jevan David and now heading towards the podium. Jakob Bergmeister up there for the 7th time this year. Fernando Barrichello for the 5th.
Yeah, second win, signed and sealed, much like that book there just behind the scenes before heading out onto the podium. Fernando Barrichello standing tall in second place. What a journey he has had, of course, improving round on round, and the Sri Lankan on top. And we will get to hear the Sri Lankan national anthem for a second time. Yes, and once again waving the Sri Lankan flag very proudly on the top step of the podium. Roman Rubicek there is the Gold Cup driver, but here's the national anthem. Well, what much more can we say, but congratulations once again to Jevan David, who has been an absolute sensation so far this weekend. And we'll collect yet more trophies. Of course, the rookie class trophy for him there as well will be handed out. But Alex from the GT Sports organisation handing the 3rd place trophy to Jakob Bergmeister, a growing collection for the young German. Let's see where he ends up. Robert, as well from the GT Sport organisation, the 2nd place trophy for FIFO Barrichello. It's been a hard-earned one for him, just half a second in the end between he and Jevan David. But Alex will now hand the winner's trophy to the Sri Lankan. There's going to be plenty of good pics for the Instagram by the end of this weekend. No question. Obviously, for Jakob Bergmeister, that's his 8th podium in totality. We've got the Neos Santa Maria race director for the GT Sport organisation presenting the winning team's trophy to Motor Park. Gladly received as well. And the Gold Cup also will be presented. Not to mention, this will be a winning rookies race as well for Yevin David. So yet another batch of 2 trophies going his way. And he's collected quite a few this weekend. But first and foremost, the Gold Cup trophy presented by Neos once more. This time to Roman Rubicek, who will take that gladly. And then the winning rookies trophy presented by Robert De Benito to Yevin David once more.
A truly staggering end to the 2024 Euroformula Open Championship as the drivers pose for the photographs alongside the Motorpark team representative as well. And the celebrations will commence on the most grand podium of the lot. Plenty of them getting out there quickly, and probably that is wise to do so. That is all from the 2024 Euroformula Open Championship. We return in Portimao on the 26th of April 2025. So from George Morgan, myself, Chris Stevens, and the entire GT Sport organisation, thank you very much for watching. See you next year.